YouTube may possibly have been the latest victim of a cyber attack. They just hit our infrastructure as experts believe that the United States was just hacked. Look what time it is. It is 12:33 p.m. on February 25th, 2024. So this is actively happening right now, and it is exploding here. Now, we've been warned by the FBI and many other government agencies of the possibility of a cyber attack on our country. Christopher Wray even likened it to 9/11. Of course, that information is not 100% confirmed as of yet, but as you can see here on downdetector.com, YouTube is seeing a massive spike in the number of complaints that have been reported on the platform here. So take a look here. He was seeing blinking red lights everywhere. The FBI has also confirmed that Chinese hackers have already infiltrated our systems. As you guys can see here, over the last 24 hours, specifically right around 7:29 a.m. this morning. Look what time it is. It is 12:33 p.m. on February 25th, 2024. So this is actively happening right now, and it is exploding here. And what we're seeing here is not that YouTube is completely down, but what we are seeing with YouTube problems is that YouTube is experiencing buffering issues. We're also seeing, okay, this person says YouTube is down, but it HTTP fault or UTTP fault. I'm not sure if they misspelled that one. Super choppy and constantly buffering. I have gigabit fiber for my home internet connection and 5G unlimited T-Mobile, and speed test shows connections are great. I have YouTube Premium, so it's not a problem with browsers or ads or ad blockers. YouTube is struggling today. And I'm seeing the exact same thing here at my house. We have a gigabit, we have gig speed internet access through AT&T, and we're struggling with YouTube on multiple different devices, on multiple different internet service providers. So one person says, Secret Owl says, solar flare, CME hit and outages at the same time. So this is just crazy. Videos, check this out. Videos starting in 144p and HD streams won't play. Look at this. YouTube video does the spinny circle a lot, and it shows, and the shorts is almost impossible to watch because of the spinny circle. So yeah, this is total, and there's a lot more comments to go through. So this is an active problem. I'm going to keep you guys posted, with many of them hiding and laying in wait of an opportune time to strike. Now, the fear from the FBI is warranted, as it looks like we just got a glimpse of what could happen during a nationwide cyber attack. So get this, guys. AT&T was suddenly left defenseless as customers across the United States suddenly lost access to their connection without warning. This meant that customers could not make calls, texts, or even access the internet through their provider. The outage lasted hours while the company was apologizing to all of its customers. They added that they will take steps to ensure that this does not happen again in the future. They also reported that this was due to an error within the company and that we should not be alarmed. Y'all buying that? The problem is that services were cut to a point where people couldn't even call 911. Now, this raised a huge concern within customers and even different government agencies. This is precisely why the FBI and even the Department of Homeland Security is now investigating these outages. Now, before I bring you the next story, all I ask is that you guys just take a second, drop a quick like for the video. I totally appreciate that. And I always want to thank you guys so much for sharing these videos. It totally does help out the channel a ton.
Cell phone services down have been for hours. Sarah Hignite joins us now. And Sarah, what is AT&T saying this morning?
Well, unfortunately, not much. They didn't give us much of an explanation at all, though we'll get into their full statement here in just a moment. X, though, showing at 8:30 this morning that AT&T still the trending topic. More than 1 million posts of users talking about this disrupted cell phone service this morning. If you have AT&T, your phone likely says SOS in the top right corner, where typically your service bars would be. That means unless you're on Wi-Fi, your phone's effectively a paperweight. Now, Down Detector shows outages impacting people all across the country this morning. The largest spike so far initially was at 4:30 this morning. That's when it showed 32,000 outages reported. But that last number here for the outages on Down Detector just after 8 o'clock this morning was the last update. More than 73,000 people without AT&T usage this morning. Indianapolis listed as one of the most reported locations on Down Detector, in addition to areas like Louisville, Chicago, Houston, Dallas, LA, and Atlanta. A big concern with this outage is public safety, of course. We called 911 dispatch center here in Indianapolis. They say they are not experiencing any outages this morning, that they've had no issues receiving calls either. They say as long as you're connected to Wi-Fi, you should still be able to make calls and especially, again, call 911 for emergencies.
Now, you would think that not everybody relies on just one cell phone communications provider, right? Which means that these people probably had access to other service providers that still had access to phone calls and whatnot, right? The problem is that AT&T was not alone in this outage. It also affected the likes of Verizon and T-Mobile. Now, again, I want to go ahead and emphasize that these happened within the same time, meaning that all of these providers suddenly had outages with no warning. Now, this was a huge problem for people who were driving and using GPS, using their 5G networks. I mean, for people who were working from home and even using the internet. For anyone who had an emergency and couldn't call 911, this was a major problem. The ramifications of an outage at this scale, really hard to comprehend. But accidents can happen, right? Although it doesn't seem to be the case for this particular scenario, as it looks like major cities here in the country were targeted. Now, you tell me if this is an accident. Outages affected cities like Houston, Chicago, Dallas, San Antonio, New York, Atlanta, Miami, Orlando, Los Angeles, Boston, Brooklyn, Washington, Philadelphia, Cleveland, and Buffalo, just to name a few. Those are all big name cities, aren't they? Most of these can be considered as major cities with huge populations, guys. Is that a coincidence? Many analysts are legitimately asking, was this just a coincidence? If these outages just so happen to affect some of the most populous cities here in the United States by chance. Some cybersecurity experts have said that an effective cyber attack has a lot to do with proximity. If an attack can affect a lot of people, then its effects will probably be that much more impactful. And so this has led many to believe that the companies are blaming internal errors to kind of cover up the fact that we may very well have been attacked by hackers. Now, we can't say for sure. However, things just lined up a little bit way too conveniently, if you know what I mean. After multiple warnings from the FBI and one recent discovery where it shows just how deep hackers may be in our systems, it totally does seem plausible. So a leaked file showed that there are many hackers who are providing their expertise to provide data as needed. The file showed a world we never knew anything about, and it exposed just how deep this rabbit hole goes. So there's this one where a local government in China paid less than $15,000 to access private websites of traffic police in Vietnam. There was one where software was provided to run disinformation campaigns and even hack accounts on X, formerly known as Twitter. This one cost $100,000. If you had access to the money, it would cost you $278,000 to get a lot of personal information behind social media accounts on platforms like Telegram and Facebook. This is just tip of the iceberg if we're talking about cyber espionage in China, which leads many to believe that the United States is in a very vulnerable position when it comes to cybersecurity. The message is very clear. One hit to our critical infrastructure could create a domino effect of emergencies. There was actually a message from the San Francisco 911 center where they urge people with emergencies to just use a landline. Either that or contact a friend or a loved one who wasn't using any of the carriers that were affected by this particular outage. And so while many understand that this was the most logical course of action, some can't help but say that emergencies are very time sensitive. Not to mention the fact that not many of us are even aware of what carrier might be available at the time. So this warning was actually very similar to what many heard in Texas, Chicago, and Virginia. This has many people in fear for their safety, as losing access to communications, elderly not having access to communication, maybe you can't reach your kids, may leave a lot of people stranded with their emergencies. Now, I know I said it a while ago, but just to confirm, I checked a website called Down Detector to confirm my suspicions. This is actually something that many other experts are worried about as well. The spike in outages for almost all providers went up around the same time. So if what AT&T is saying is true, I have to say that they should have had a spike of outages before everyone else. The problem is that most of them experienced the same thing at the same time. Now, this has led analysts to theorize that these were not a product of an internal glitch or an error. Even if most of these providers were using a similar system, they can't all be sharing the same connection, which means that it's possible that the outage came from something else. It came from the actual source of our connection. Now, there are those who believe that this could be connected to the Red Sea. Now, if you guys remember, there were talks about the Iran-backed Houthi militants that could possibly damage internet cables in the Red Sea way underwater, and it could effectively cut our lines of communication. There are others who have said that this is probably a test from hackers who are already inside the country, not just through the internet, but but many believe that these hackers are located in major cities along the United States. This is very concerning because that would mean that these outages are most probably just a test to see what they're capable of. It could mean that they're poking around in our critical infrastructure and they're seeing if it can be tracked. It could also be a preliminary attack just to see how long they can keep our systems down and just how many people would be affected. Now, as we saw, thousands of people were affected and plenty more were denied the ability to even call for help, make a text, or even surf the internet. Now, at this point, all that we're aware of is that there are threats lurking within our critical infrastructure. They're waiting for the right moment, and one snap of a finger could possibly derail the lives of millions of Americans. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm gonna be here every single day trying to inform you guys of what's happening and how it's going to affect our lives. Before I go, I wanna thank you all for hitting the like button. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you on the next one.